They laughed behind my back like I wasn't even in the room. "She can't even read without her glasses," I heard Lauren say. "She just signs whatever we hand her." I was standing just outside the kitchen, one hand on the doorway. They knew I was there. They just didn't care. I'd misplaced my glasses again that morning. The good ones, with the brown frame and prescription strong enough to stop a train. I'd asked Michael if he'd seen them. He barely looked up from his phone. "Try not to lose them next time, Mom." Then Lauren chimed in with her usual, "You've got that other pair, don't you? The one with the crack?" The crack was a scratch that ran across the left lens like a hairline fracture in ice. I could barely read the microwave clock through them, let alone anything with print smaller than a billboard. They had no idea I heard them laughing. Or maybe they did. Either way, that was the moment something in me shifted. I didn't say anything. I just turned around and went back to my room. I sat down on the edge of the bed, looking at the soft pink quilt I'd sewn by hand 15 years ago. It was starting to fray along the edges. Like me. When did I become a joke in my own house? I wasn't always like this. I taught literature at Hartford High for 38 years. I taught seniors, the hard ones, the ones who hated Shakespeare and wanted nothing more than to graduate and forget my name. But I got through to them. I always did. I saw things in them no one else saw. And now here I was, a blind old woman being laughed at in the hallway by her daughter-in-law. The house used to be mine. Michael grew up in it, scraped his knees on this floor, spilled juice on these carpets. After Peter passed, I stayed here alone for 5 years. I kept the garden going. I shoveled my own snow. I even fixed the damn washing machine with a YouTube tutorial and a butter knife. But then, Michael started coming around more often, and Lauren too, and they said all the right things. "You shouldn't be alone in this big house. Think of the bills, Mom. We'll help manage everything. Just sign a few things for the taxes." That was 3 years ago. I remember the day I signed the documents. I didn't have my glasses then either. I told myself it didn't matter. I trusted them. My son. My own son. Now Lauren kept the keys. I had to ask her if I wanted to use the car. Michael handled my prescriptions. I hadn't seen a bank statement in 2 years. And when my reading glasses disappeared, somehow no one could remember where they went. I stood up from the bed and walked to the small writing desk by the window. It still held my old stationery, a dried-up fountain pen, and a stack of mail. Most of it junk. But tucked between the pages of an old grocery flyer was something thicker, yellowed, folded twice, paper soft from age. It was a photocopy of something. I squinted, holding it to the light. Conveyance of property. Hartford County Registry. My name, Michael's name, Lauren's. I could make out the signature at the bottom. Mine. I grabbed the cracked lens glasses from the nightstand and shoved them on. The scratch cut right across the type, but I could still see it. I had transferred the house. Fully. Legally. 3 years ago. The date was there, clear as day. I felt my knees weaken, but I didn't sit. No wonder they laughed. No wonder they never wanted me to read anything. I wasn't just some forgetful old woman in their way. I was a tenant. In the house I bought. In the house I raised my son in. I was a blind woman signing her own erasure. I folded the paper and put it in the pocket of my cardigan. The laughter from the kitchen had stopped. The dishwasher had started humming. Life, for them, went on. But something was about to change. And not just the glasses. The day I signed over the house, I was wearing a blue cardigan with frayed cuffs and a pin that used to belong to my mother. I remember because Lauren complimented it, said it looked charming and old-fashioned, the way people say something they would never wear. Michael had come in with a folder and a ballpoint pen. "It's just paperwork, Mom. The accountant said it'll help with property taxes." I asked where the glasses were. He said I didn't need them, just initial here, here, and here. I didn't think twice. You don't think twice when it's your child. And now, here we are. 3 years later, and I don't even get my own mail. They said I was forgetful, distracted, getting a bit fuzzy around the edges. I began to believe it. That's the worst part. You start doubting yourself, even when your instincts are screaming. After I found the copy of the deed, I didn't confront anyone. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed clarity, not fury. So I waited until the house was quiet. Michael had taken Lauren out for dinner. They do that often now, little dates while I stay home and rest. I crept into the study. It used to be my reading room. Now it's Michael's office, full of screens and files and things I'm not supposed to touch. The filing cabinet wasn't locked. Why would it be? Who'd imagine the blind old woman would go snooping? I pulled open the bottom drawer, the one he always shuts quickly when I walk by. Insurance, banking, tax filings, and a folder with my name on it. MJ, legal. Inside were photocopies. Notarized, certified, some with my signature. One was a power of attorney, granting Michael control over all my medical and financial decisions. Another was an authorization to handle my accounts, dated 6 months after Peter died. And a third, cold as steel, revocation of will, superseded by living trust. Lauren's handwriting in the margin. Finalized. Keep Mom out of estate. I sat back on my heels, the papers slipping through my fingers. They'd built a whole world under my feet while I was still dusting picture frames and watering plants, and I hadn't seen any of it, because I didn't have my glasses. It wasn't just oversight, it was a strategy. I put everything back in place, neat, quiet. My hands were trembling. My heart wasn't. Not anymore. Back in my room, I sat by the lamp and stared at the old rotary phone I hadn't used in years. Next to it was an address book, the old kind, pages yellowing and curling at the corners. I turned to the letter S. Sandra Myers, attorney at law. We taught together once long ago before she switched careers. She always said, "You'll need me one day. Everyone does." I dialed her number. It rang 6 times before a brisk voice answered. "Ms. Myers' office." "Tell her it's Marilyn Johnson," I said, steady as steel. "She'll remember me." Sandra called back that evening. "Marilyn," she said, warm and surprised. "It's been too long. What's going on?" "I need you to look at some documents," I said. "I think I signed away more than I realized." A pause. "Do you feel safe?" "For now." We scheduled a meeting for Monday morning. I'd take a cab. No need to tell anyone. That night, I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, the scratch in my glasses cutting a faint line across my vision. The room was dark, quiet. The house, asleep. But I wasn't. My hands were still. My mind was not. I thought about how small betrayals start. Not with a slap or a scream, but a whisper. A nudge. A pen placed gently in your hand while your eyes are tired and your heart is trusting. I'd given my life to this family, and they'd taken the rest without asking. But I had one thing they'd underestimated. I remember everything, even without my glasses. The mornings used to start with the smell of coffee and the sound of Peter tuning the radio to the Weather Channel. Now they begin with Lauren's footsteps in the kitchen and the hum of the espresso machine she insisted on buying. "It's more efficient," she said. "We don't have time for drip." They don't ask if I want coffee. They assume I'll take tea. Weak, lukewarm, left on the counter until it cools. That Sunday, no one spoke to me until noon. Michael was in his office. Lauren had a Pilates class and came back, glowing, smug. I sat on the porch with a blanket over my knees, watching the birds peck at the feeder. They used to be mine. Now Lauren tells me not to overfill it. It attracts squirrels. Everything became theirs over time. It's hard to pinpoint when exactly I stopped being someone they spoke with and became someone they spoke around. Like I wasn't there. Like I was a houseplant. Old, ornamental, in the way, but too sentimental to throw out. Lauren started taking over the kitchen first. "You've done enough cooking, Marilyn. Let us take care of you." At first, it sounded kind. Until "take care of you" turned into "don't touch the groceries." "I've already planned the meals. Why don't you sit down, Marilyn, and let me handle things?" Then they rearranged the living room, packed up my old photo albums, moved the antique lamp to the attic, replaced Peter's chair with a leather recliner Michael found online. I came back from a dental appointment, and my house was unrecognizable. Lauren smiled. "Surprise! We did a refresh. Don't you just love it?" I stood in the doorway, holding my purse like a stranger. There was no smell of lemon polish, no creak in the floorboard by the coffee table. They'd replaced the floors, too. I remember Michael putting his arm around me. "It was time for an update, Mom. We're in a new chapter now." New for them. For me, it was the slow erasure of everything I had built. Even the mail. Lauren started sorting it. "It's easier if I just filter out the junk," she said. But she kept everything, even letters addressed to me. Once I found a sealed envelope on the kitchen table, my name on it. A card from an old student, Thomas Langdon. He'd tracked me down after 20 years to say thank you for believing in him. I'd never have seen it if I hadn't been looking for the salt. Michael dismissed it. "What's the big deal? You got it, didn't you?" It was always like that. Everything framed as kindness. Every restriction painted as care. Even the bathroom drawer had changed. Lauren organized my medications. I used to write my own schedules. Now I take whatever pill she hands me, trusting the color matches the memory. "You're still sharp," she said once, handing me a cup of water. "But just in case." Just in case. That phrase again. It had become a cage. When I asked about my bank statements, Michael said, "We moved everything online. It's safer that way." Too much fraud targeting seniors? I hadn't logged into my bank in over 2 years. He told me not to worry. "You're protected." I used to be a woman who handled everything: bills, taxes, repairs, appointments. Now I was an aging shadow, told when to sit, when to eat, when to be silent. But the worst was when Lauren laughed at me in front of the kids. Her nieces had come for Thanksgiving. She told them I had old lady moments. Then she whispered something, and they giggled. I remember sitting at the end of the table, carving turkey for a plate no one touched, while they toasted each other with wine I wasn't allowed to pour. I wasn't asked to say grace. I wasn't even mentioned in the toasts. And when I cleared my plate and quietly left the room, no one followed. They think I'm harmless. They think I've forgotten how to fight. But I see everything, even without clear vision. And Sandra Myers has an appointment set for tomorrow. I may not get everything back, but I'll get myself back. I woke up before dawn. Not because of the arthritis or the usual groaning of the floorboards, but because I had something to do. I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for the house to stay still. Lauren and Michael never stirred before 7:30. She needed her 8 hours, and he never started his day without a protein shake and at least 20 minutes of silence. That gave me a window. I dressed slowly. Slacks, blouse, cardigan. The same clothes they said made me look dated. I liked that word. Dated things endure. Trendy ones vanish. I didn't tell anyone I was going out. Just took my old leather handbag, the one with the little tear inside the lining, just big enough to hide what mattered. I slipped the copy of the property transfer document inside and closed the clasp. By 6:15, I was waiting for the cab at the end of the driveway. I didn't want Lauren watching from the kitchen window, her eyes narrow behind the glass, wondering where I was going and why I hadn't asked permission. The cab smelled faintly of cinnamon and dust. The driver was a young woman with chipped blue nail polish and music playing too low to recognize. "Downtown?" she asked. "Main and Trenton. Law office above the flower shop." She nodded and pulled away from the curb, not asking more. I appreciated that. As we drove, I saw my city. The one I used to walk through with Peter. The one where Michael took his first steps. The one I gave my working years to. Change in front of me. Shiny new condos. Coffee shops with names in lowercase letters. It all looked like a place built for people who hadn't lived long enough to lose anything. The office door still had Sandra Meyer's name on the glass. The same gold lettering. The same stubborn smudge in the bottom corner. When she opened the door and saw me, she smiled. Not the polite kind you give old acquaintances, but the warm, surprised kind that sits behind the eyes. "Marilyn," she said, pulling me in, "you look exactly the same." "Liar," I said, smiling back. She poured me real coffee. Not espresso foam or oat milk nonsense. Just hot, dark, strong coffee in a chipped mug that read, "Trust me, I'm a lawyer." We sat. I pulled the paper from my bag and unfolded it on her desk. She read silently, eyebrows slowly lifting. "You signed this without legal counsel?" she asked. I didn't have my glasses. Sandra exhaled. "Marilyn, this document gives them full title. You're not listed as a co-owner. You have no legal standing in the property, not even tenancy protections." I nodded. I had suspected as much, but it was different hearing it said aloud. "There's more," I said, and I told her everything. The power of attorney, the financial silence, the things I'd found in Michael's filing cabinet. Sandra didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp. She just listened, took notes, asked precise questions. "Do you feel pressured, afraid, unsafe?" "No," I said. "Not afraid, just erased." Her face softened. "That's harder to prove, but we can build something." She laid out a plan in calm, clear terms. We'd file to revoke the power of attorney. We'd request full access to my financial records. We'd initiate a petition to reclaim residents' rights, if not ownership, then tenancy with legal footing. "And the will?" I asked. Sandra looked at me carefully. "Do you want to change it?" "Yes," I said. "They'll get nothing, not after this. I want everything to go to my granddaughter, Alice." "Alice?" "She's the only one who asks how I feel, without expecting an envelope afterward." Sandra smiled again. "I'll prepare the paperwork." It was almost noon when I left her office. The sun had come out. I sat on the bench outside the flower shop, letting the heat touch my face. Across the street, a mother chased her toddler down the sidewalk. A delivery man stacked boxes into a cafe. People were living. So was I. Maybe not on their terms. Not yet. But I had started something. The funny thing about dignity is that it doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It just stands up. Quietly. Early in the morning, and gets in the cab. When I came home from Sandra's office, no one noticed. Lauren was on the phone in the kitchen, pacing and nodding to someone who wasn't there. Michael was in the living room, remote in one hand, his phone in the other. The news was on, but he wasn't watching it. I walked past both of them, and neither looked up. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat down at the writing desk. My heart wasn't racing. That surprised me. There was no panic, no dizziness, none of the flutter that comes with confrontation. Maybe because there hadn't been a confrontation. Not yet. Just quiet decisions, one after another. That's how people take your life from you, after all. Quietly. And that's how I would take it back. Later, Lauren knocked on my door. 2 quick taps. She never waited. She just came in. "Hey," she said, like we were still pretending to be close. "I was thinking of making that lentil soup you like. Want some?" I nodded. "That'd be nice." She smiled, but there was something off about it. Something forced. She was looking at my purse, then at the writing desk, scanning. Maybe she noticed something had shifted. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she was just looking for a pen. That evening, while they were eating dinner in the living room, not inviting me, not asking if I was hungry, I returned to the filing cabinet. This time, I wasn't looking for shock. I was looking for evidence. In the bottom drawer, behind the MJ Legal folder, I found something new. A thick envelope. Unsealed. Inside, printouts from Michael's emails. He hadn't even bothered to password lock the computer. He assumed I couldn't read the screen with my damaged glasses. He assumed I wouldn't try. I squinted, moved the lamp closer, angled the monitor just right. It was slow going, but I could make out the subject lines. RE. Equity transfer forms. Follow-up on rental agreement template. Vacancy timeline for upstairs unit. My unit. They were planning to move me out. Turn my home, the one I'd bought with Peter, into a duplex. Rent the top floor to young professionals. Lauren had even contacted a stager. "She'll never know," one of her messages read. "Just say we're repainting. We'll have her downstairs with her books and tea, and she won't notice the difference." I sat perfectly still. I had imagined betrayal. But not this. Not the full architecture of it. They weren't waiting for me to die. They were moving ahead while I still lived and breathed under their roof. I stood up and walked back to my room, slower than usual. Sat on the bed. Stared at the lamp. I remembered the night I brought Michael home from the hospital. His first fever. I stayed up all night, pressing cool cloths to his forehead. His little hand gripped mine like it was the only thing anchoring him to the world. I didn't sleep. I didn't complain. I just loved him. And now he was building my exit in quiet emails and unsigned leases. That night, I wrote a list. At the top, what I still control. My will, my bank account, pending Sandra's filing, my medical directives, my body, my voice. Then I wrote a second list. What they've taken. The house, my privacy, my autonomy, my voice, until now. The 2 lists stared at me, side by side. I'd lost things. That was undeniable. But I hadn't lost everything. And I hadn't lost me. The next morning, I called my bank. Gave them Sandra's name. Told them I wanted full printouts of the last 2 years of transactions. They asked why. I said, "Because I'm not dead yet." The woman on the phone chuckled, nervously. I didn't. After that, I called Alice, my granddaughter. She was always careful with me, gentle, but not condescending. She called once a week, brought me cookies she made from scratch, listened when I spoke, didn't interrupt, didn't ask for anything. When I told her I needed to talk to her in person, just us two, she said, "Of course, Grandma. I'll come tonight." And she did. She came in wearing jeans and a green coat, her hair a little wet from the rain. She gave me a real hug, not the side squeeze kind, the real kind. Both arms, both eyes closed. I made us tea, poured it into the blue porcelain cups that Lauren tried to give away last year. "This house is full of clutter," she'd said. I kept them anyway. I keep everything that matters. Alice sat across from me. "What's going on?" she asked gently. "You sounded serious." "I need your help," I said. Then I pulled out the documents, and I started telling the truth. Alice didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. She read slowly, carefully, like I used to read over student essays with a red pen. Her fingers moved lightly over the pages. The property deed, the emails I'd printed from Michael's computer, the copy of the power of attorney I hadn't even remembered signing. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. "Grandma," she said quietly, They actually did this?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She closed the folder and exhaled, long and slow, the way you do when you're trying to keep yourself from breaking something. Then she leaned forward and asked the question no one else had. "How are you holding up?" It undid me. Not completely. I didn't cry. But something in my throat tightened. It felt like air passing through old, rusted pipes. I poured more tea and nodded to the chair by the window. "Sit with me a while, Alice. Let's talk like we used to." She brought her cup and curled up in the same spot she'd sat in as a girl, her legs now too long to fold under her like they used to. She looked at me, waiting. "It didn't happen all at once," I said. "It was little things. Small moments. They make you feel like you're lucky to still be allowed in the room. Then one day, you realize you don't have keys to your own life anymore." Alice's voice was quiet. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I smiled. "Because shame is sneaky. It tells you it's your fault, that you're being dramatic, that maybe you did misplace those glasses, maybe you did forget the terms of that paper, maybe you are in the way." She shook her head. "No, that's not you. It's who they wanted me to be." We sat in silence for a moment, the clock ticking in the hallway like a heartbeat. Then Alice said, "Tell me what you want me to do." It was the only question that mattered. "I'm changing my will," I said. "Sandra's helping me. Everything I own, what's left of it, is going to you." She blinked. "Grandma, and I'm setting up a trust in your name. It'll be protected. They won't be able to touch it." "I don't want your money," she said quickly. "I just want you to be okay." "I know. That's why you'll have it." Alice reached for my hand. "What about now? What happens next?" I didn't answer right away. I was still figuring that out. But a plan had begun to form. Quiet. Clean. Simple. "I'm going to get out," I said finally. "I don't know how yet, but I won't stay where I'm not wanted. Not after this." Alice looked at me like she was seeing me differently for the first time. "You're stronger than I thought." I chuckled. They all forget who I was before I was someone's mother, someone's burden. But I remember. She stayed for another hour. We didn't talk about revenge or confrontations or lawsuits. We talked about lemon cake and the trip we took to Rhode Island when she was 9, about Peter's terrible dancing in my lavender garden, about things that mattered. When she left, I walked her to the door. "I'll keep everything we discussed between us," she said. "You have my word." "I know." "And Grandma?" She hesitated, then added, "If you want, I'll go with you, wherever you decide to live next. I'll help pack. I'll help with everything." I touched her cheek. "You already have." After she left, I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I went to the hallway where Lauren kept the family calendar. It used to be mine. Now it was covered in appointments, color-coded tabs, and stickers that said things like meeting and girls' night. I took a pen, black ink, bold, and on the day 2 weeks from now, I wrote 3 words in the middle of an empty square. "Move out begins." No exclamation point, no decoration, just a quiet promise. To myself. The next few days passed like smoke. Silent, thin, easy to miss unless you knew how to pay attention. Lauren was busy planning a garden party. I heard her on the phone with the caterer. Yes, 30 guests. Yes, gluten-free options. No, my mother-in-law won't be involved. She's not, well, not well. She said it so casually, like discussing the weather. Michael didn't say much at all. He never did anymore, unless it was about money or errands. He treated me like a ghost he was obligated to speak to, just in case the will hadn't been updated yet. If only he knew. Sandra had moved fast. The revocation of the power of attorney had already been filed. The trust was in motion. My new will, too. It was all real now. And for the first time in years, I was the one keeping secrets. On Thursday, a packet arrived in the mail. It was addressed to me, but Lauren had already opened it by the time I found it in the kitchen. "Oh," she said, holding the envelope like it was wet. "This came for you. Something from a law office?" She handed it to me slowly, eyes sharp with curiosity. "Thank you," I said, calmly taking it and walking away. I could feel her watching me down the hall. She didn't ask what it was. Not yet. She would later. But by then, it would be too late. Back in my room, I opened the envelope. Inside were copies of all the updated documents, neatly arranged and clipped together with Sandra's crisp handwriting. "Your voice is restored. Use it well." I ran my fingers over those words. Not dramatic. Not flowery. Just the truth. I placed the papers in the drawer beneath my winter sweaters. That was the only drawer Lauren never bothered to touch. So much wool, and it's always itchy. Ironic. I always said dignity itched more than comfort ever could. That evening, I joined them at dinner. It had been a while. Lauren blinked in surprise when I walked into the dining room without being called. "Oh," she said, "you're joining us?" I smiled and sat down at the end of the table. Michael barely looked up. "We're having the grilled chicken. Lauren made a sauce." "It smells lovely," I said, placing the napkin in my lap. "And I'm feeling more present lately. Thought I'd celebrate." They didn't ask what I meant, but I saw it. The flicker in Lauren's eyes. The slight hesitation in Michael's fork midair. They knew something had shifted. They just didn't know what. After dinner, Lauren stayed to clean up. I waited in the hallway. When she passed me on her way to the laundry room, I said, "Thank you for not throwing out my winter sweaters." She froze for a split second. "Of course. I figured you'd want them." I nodded. "There's a lot I want." That night, I called the moving company. "Yes, we do partial packaging and senior relocation. the young woman on the line said cheerfully. When are you looking to move? 2 weeks from today, I replied. Quietly. Morning. No fuss. And where to, ma'am? I gave her the address of the small rental Sandra had helped me secure. A cozy one-bedroom near Alice's campus, with a porch and a lilac bush. I'd signed the lease that morning. When I hung up, I stood by the window for a long time. The neighborhood was still. The porch light flickered. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once, then went silent. I whispered aloud to no one. I'm going home. Not back. Not again. Just home. Not to a house, but to a life that hadn't been designed by someone else. And for the first time in years, I slept the whole night through. The morning after I scheduled the move, I did something that felt strangely rebellious. I opened the curtains wide and let the sunlight in. Lauren hated direct sun. It fades the furniture, she always said, as if the house were a museum piece rather than a place where people were supposed to live. I let it flood the room anyway, let it land on the old photographs, the quilt, the shelves, let it settle on me. Then I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed, the good one, with the wheels that stick sometimes, and placed it quietly in the closet. I didn't start packing yet. Just put it where I could see it every morning when I opened the door. A small reminder. This ends soon. That day, Michael asked me to sign something. He came into the kitchen holding a clipboard and an envelope. It's just a renewal form for the homeowner's insurance, he said, too casually. Routine. I reached for my cracked lens glasses. He hesitated. I can read it to you if you want. I'd rather read it myself, I said. He didn't press, but I saw it. The moment his smile went rigid. I read the first page, then the second. It wasn't an insurance renewal. It was a document appointing him full conservatorship over my medical and financial decisions. Routine, he'd said. I looked up at him, slowly, steadily. This isn't insurance, I said. Michael's face didn't change, but he shifted his weight. It's just a precaution, Mom, in case something happens. With your eyesight and age, my eyesight is poor, I said. Not my judgment. He looked down at the floor. Fine, forget it. He walked out without another word. I placed the document in my desk drawer. Not to keep, but to remember. Evidence. Pattern. Intention. That evening, I baked a lemon cake. The one Peter used to love. The one I hadn't made since the last Thanksgiving I hosted, 5 years ago, before Lauren took over the holidays. I brought a slice to Alice the next morning. She opened the door in her pajamas, blinking in surprise. Grandma? You didn't say you were coming. I didn't want to ask permission. She let me in with a smile and made us coffee in her tiny kitchen. No marble countertops, no espresso machines. Just an old Mr. Coffee and chipped mugs that didn't match. It felt like home. I told her about the conservatorship document. She didn't even try to hide her anger. They're cornering you. They're trying, I said, but the walls are thinner than they think. Alice took a sip of coffee. You're still planning to leave on the 14th? I nodded. Morning. Movers come at 8. I'll be packed by then. I'll be there at 7, she said. I touched her hand. You don't have to. I want to. We talked for an hour. Not about the plan, but about books, about the smell of summer rain, about the first movie Peter ever took me to, a black and white with an ending that still made me cry. Before I left, she asked, Are you scared? No, I said. I've already lived through worse. This is just logistics. On the way home, I stopped by the bank to confirm the transfer to Alice's trust. Sandra had everything in place. The teller, a young man with kind eyes, handed me the receipt. "Is there anything else I can help with today, ma'am?" "Yes," I said, folding the paper. "Could you print me a list of all recent transactions from this account?" "Of course." He handed it to me a few minutes later, 2 pages long. 17 transactions. 6 I hadn't authorized. Subscriptions I didn't recognize. A donation to some political campaign I'd never heard of. Groceries delivered to an address I didn't know. Furniture from a boutique site Lauren had mentioned once. I didn't flinch. Didn't even frown. I simply thanked him and tucked the pages into my bag. Back home, I added them to my drawer. Next to the conservatorship form. Next to the emails. The folder was getting thicker. So was my resolve. Lauren and Michael still didn't suspect. They were too sure of the mask they'd shaped around me. Old, forgetful, harmless. They didn't know the curtain had been pulled back, and they didn't see the suitcase waiting in my closet. The morning light came through soft and gold, and I thought, 1 more week. 7 days. That's all that remained between me and the door. But in houses like this, houses where silence grows like mold, 7 days can feel like a lifetime. Lauren started hovering. Not obviously, just a little closer than usual. Her smiles got wider, tighter. Her questions more frequent. "How are you sleeping, Marilyn? Did you take your pills today? Have you been confused lately?" I knew what she was doing, laying groundwork. If anyone ever asked, she'd have a story ready. Marilyn was declining, poor thing. We tried our best. I gave her nothing, no stumbles, no hesitation. I made my bed with military corners. I folded my sweaters in alphabetical order, cardigans before pullovers. I took my vitamins like a soldier taking orders. On Thursday morning, I heard Michael on the phone in the study, his voice low, urgent. "No, she hasn't said anything. I don't know. I think she's suspicious. No, the paperwork isn't signed yet. I'm working on it." I stood in the hallway just long enough to hear what I needed. Then I walked away, calm as breath. They still thought they had time, still thought I was wavering, still thought they could finish the job. They were wrong. That afternoon, I went upstairs with a roll of packing tape. They didn't hear me. Lauren was gardening. Michael was vacuuming his office like someone expecting guests. The upper floor hadn't been touched since they moved in. When I opened the cedar chest in the spare room, the smell hit me. Old paper, dry lavender, dust, and time. Inside, my journals. 40 years of them. Spiral-bound, some yellowed with age, some still sharp with ink. Each one labeled. I'd written in secret for decades. After Peter died, I wrote every day. I took out 6 of them. The recent years. The ones where everything started to change. As I packed them into a box labeled private, I realized something. They hadn't just tried to take my house. They'd tried to rewrite my story, push me to the margins of my own life. But I'd written it down. All of it. Every slight. Every, "We're just trying to help." Every laugh about my glasses. Every paper I signed without knowing. Every meal I wasn't invited to. Every time they looked through me. I was a historian of my own erasure. But not anymore. I taped the box shut and wrote "Fragile" in bold black letters. Set it by the door. No one asked about it. That night I caught Michael in the hallway. He looked startled to see me. "Mom," he said, "did you need something?" "No," I replied. "I was just wondering if you'd found my glasses yet." He blinked. "Your glasses?" "The good ones," I said evenly. "The ones I lost 3 years ago." He opened his mouth, closed it. Don't know. That's all right, I said. I think I see clearly now. I walked past him without waiting for a reply. In my room, I opened the bottom drawer and took out the thick folder. All the documents, emails, statements, and notes. I added one more item, a fresh journal, blank except for today's date on the first page. Then I wrote, day -7. Today, they looked at me like I was furniture. But next week, I walk out of this house carrying everything they tried to bury, and I will not look back. I capped the pen, set it down, and smiled. Let them watch. Let them wonder. In 7 days, I'd be gone, and they'd be left with nothing but their own reflections, distorted by the absence of the woman they thought would never leave. On Sunday, Lauren found the suitcase. I heard the sound from my room, the low, clipped intake of breath, followed by the unmistakable hiss of a zipper being opened. She didn't call out to me, didn't knock on my door. She just stood in the hallway, holding the half-open case like it was a loaded weapon. She waited until Michael came home from wherever he'd gone. Errands, probably, or an excuse to avoid the discomfort of living with someone he'd quietly erased. They knocked on my door together. "Mom," Michael said, opening it before I responded. "Can we talk?" I closed the book I'd been pretending to read and folded my hands. Of course. They stood, not sitting, not even pretending this was casual. Lauren spoke first. "We noticed your suitcase." "I put it in the closet." "Yes," she said, trying to smile. "But it's packed." I nodded. Michael's jaw flexed. "Are you planning to leave?" "I am." They stared at me like I'd announced I was joining a circus. "May I ask why?" Lauren said, her voice too smooth. "We've tried to make things comfortable for you." "Comfortable," I repeated. "Is that what this is?" Michael took a step forward. "Is someone putting ideas in your head?" "Ideas?" I raised my eyebrows. "You mean like autonomy? Clarity? Ownership?" His expression tightened. "That's not what I meant." "No," I said. "But it's what I meant." Lauren's voice sharpened. "You're not thinking clearly, Marilyn. Uprooting yourself like this at your age." "My age is not your shield," I said, standing. "Don't use it like one." There was silence, just long enough for the air to thicken. "I'm leaving on Friday," I said calmly. "I've secured housing. I've retained legal counsel. All necessary filings have been completed." Michael's face paled. "I've also revoked your power of attorney," I added, looking directly at him. "You?" "I've reviewed 2 years of bank statements," I said to Lauren. "I'm aware of every unauthorized transaction." She opened her mouth, closed it. "I won't be asking for explanations," I continued. "I'm not interested in apologies. I'm not here to argue." "Then why now?" Michael asked, his voice quiet. "Why leave now?" I looked at him, really looked. At the boy I'd once cradled through fevers, the man who stood by while his wife dismantled my life piece by piece. "Because you counted on me never noticing," I said. "And I noticed." Lauren scoffed. "This is absurd. Where will you go? Who's going to help you manage?" I smiled. "I have help, and I have more vision left than you think." They said nothing. I walked to the closet, pulled the suitcase into full view, and let it sit there in silence, like a quiet declaration, like a ticking clock. "I'd appreciate some privacy until Friday," I said. "I'll be packing the rest of my things." Lauren folded her arms. "You're being emotional." "No," I said softly. "I'm being final." They left the room without another word. I waited for the door to close, then sat back down, my knees trembling just a little. but only a little. I opened my journal and wrote, Day -5. Today, I told them. No pleading. No yelling, just the facts. It scared them more than if I'd screamed. They don't understand quiet resolve, but they will. By evening, the air in the house had changed. Lauren made dinner, but didn't call me. Michael sat in the living room, pretending to watch the news, but staring at the wall. No one laughed, no one argued. They were waiting for me to soften, to back down. They didn't know this version of me. They'd never bothered to meet her. By Monday morning, they had begun their campaign. Lauren knocked on my door with a tray. Oatmeal, cut fruit, a cup of tea. I thought you might like breakfast in bed, she said, smiling too wide. I looked at the tray, then at her. No, thank you, I said, but I appreciate the effort. She stood there for a second too long, then set the tray on the dresser. I'll just leave it here. You should eat something. She was trying kindness now, or the closest version of it she could manage. The kind of kindness that expects a receipt, a change of heart, a retraction. Michael, for his part, tried nostalgia. That afternoon, he found me in the garden, the one I used to tend before Lauren declared it too chaotic and replaced it with mulch and drought-resistant shrubs. Remember the plum tree? He said suddenly, standing beside me. Of course, I replied. Peter planted it before you turned 5. He nodded. I used to climb it. Got stuck once. You came out barefoot and helped me down. I remember. He was quiet a moment. You used to hum when you watered the roses. Some old song. It wasn't old when I learned it. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I guess I've been distant, he said. I looked at him. You've been strategic. The smile faltered. I didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. Things got complicated. We thought we were helping. No, I said gently. You thought I wouldn't resist. His face hardened just a touch. You're really going through with this? I am. And the will? I said nothing. That's not fair, Mom, he said, quieter now. After everything we've done for you. I turned to him then, slowly, meeting his eyes. Done to me, I corrected. He blinked, once, then walked away. That evening, I called Alice. Everything's still on schedule, I told her. I'll be there early Friday. I've taken the whole day off. I smiled. You don't have to do that. I want to. We stayed on the phone longer than usual, talking about her classes, her neighbor's loud dog, the pie she'd tried to make and burned. It felt good, real, not wrapped in guilt or transaction. After the call, I went back to the spare room and opened the next journal. I'd written the entry 2 years ago. He asked me to sign something again today, said it was just a routine update. I couldn't see the text clearly. My glasses were missing. Again. I signed anyway. I didn't ask questions. I'm starting to feel outside myself. I closed the journal slowly. That woman was still me, but I wasn't her anymore. Before bed, I opened my current journal and wrote, Day -4. They've begun their performance, breakfast trays, garden memories, soft voices. It's not regret. It's panic dressed up as affection. They fear losing control more than they ever feared losing me. The next morning, I would begin packing in earnest. Books first, then linens, then the pictures they tried to hide in a box labeled seasonal decor. Each item I packed wasn't just a thing. It was a thread of memory I was pulling back into my own hands, and I wasn't leaving a single one behind. By Wednesday morning, the house had gone quiet. Not peaceful, calculated. Lauren no longer knocked. Michael didn't linger in hallways. Meals arrived on time but without a word, like offerings placed before an indifferent god. I stopped opening the lids. They were conserving energy, waiting for me to falter. But I had already packed the photographs, every last one. The baby albums Lauren once called dust traps. The framed picture of Peter in his uniform. The Polaroid of Michael in his graduation gown. The one he used to say was his lucky charm. I wrapped each in soft towels and placed them in the deepest box, labeled kitchen, in large black letters. Let them dig if they wanted. They'd never find them. By Thursday, the last of the books were gone from the shelves. The good teacups, the ones Lauren said didn't match the new aesthetic, had been carefully wrapped and packed. The quilt I made the year Peter got sick was folded at the top of my suitcase. Only the bed remained untouched. I'd leave the linens for last. In the afternoon, Lauren tried again. Not kindness, not nostalgia. Something colder. "I've looked into the place you're moving to," she said, leaning against my doorframe. "It's small." "I don't need much," I replied. "There's no elevator. There's a staircase. No one to look after you." I met her gaze. No one to undermine me either. She opened her mouth, closed it. "We did everything we could. You did everything you thought you could get away with." She stepped back like I'd struck her. "I hope you'll be comfortable," she said, stiffly. "But I won't pretend this isn't disappointing." "I'm not asking for honesty now," I said. "I asked for it 3 years ago. You gave me a pen instead." She left without another word. I went to the hallway closet and pulled out the brown box labeled MISC. Inside, beneath tangled cords and faded wrapping paper, was the envelope I'd hidden the day I found the property documents. I opened it again, not to check. I knew what it said. But to feel the weight of it one more time. Conveyance of property. Revocation of will power of attorney. Durable and broad. It was a graveyard of my trust, laid out in clean legal language. I placed it gently in the folder with everything else and sealed it with a paperclip. Tomorrow, I'd hand it to Sandra in person. But tonight, I would sleep in my bed one last time. Before I did, I made myself a small cup of tea. The peppermint kind they always said smelled too sharp. I carried it to the porch and sat in Peter's old chair, the one they'd tried to give away last summer. The evening air was cool, and the leaves were starting to turn. The street was quiet. No cars, no voices. Just the sound of wind through the trees and the faint crackle of dry leaves under their weight. I sipped the tea slowly, let it burn just a little. And I thought, this is what surviving looks like. Not drama, not noise, just endurance, and one packed box at a time. Back inside, I turned off the lights, changed into my nightgown, and opened the journal one last time that week. Day -1. I've packed my whole life into 12 boxes. Everything that matters. Everything they thought I wouldn't notice missing. Tomorrow, I take it back. Not with a fight, with a key, with a cab. With the dignity of walking out under my own name, on my own feet. I placed the pen down and closed the book. In the dark, I smiled. Let them keep the house. They'll never own what I just reclaimed. Friday morning came without ceremony. No parade of last-minute questions. No clumsy attempts at reconciliation. Just quiet. Suspicious. Loaded quiet. I woke before dawn. Dressed in slacks and a soft blue sweater Peter once said made me look like someone who still remembered how to dance. I brushed my hair. Put on lipstick. Not because anyone would notice, but because I would. The movers arrived at 8:02. 3 young men, polite, efficient, a little too loud in their greetings. I waved them in and pointed to the boxes stacked in the hallway, the bedroom, the porch. "You sure you don't need help with more?" one of them asked. "We've moved folks out of way bigger places." "This is all I need," I said. "I'm not leaving anything important behind." While they loaded, I walked through the house one last time. The kitchen, now cold and perfect. The living room, stripped of memory. Michael's office, door closed. Of course. I passed the calendar Lauren kept so meticulously. I'd crossed off each day this week in thick, black lines. Today's square held just 2 words: move out. I didn't cross it. I didn't need to. I was living it. At 8:47, Michael came downstairs. He didn't speak right away, just stood by the staircase, arms folded, watching the last box disappear into the truck. Then, quietly, "So you're really doing it?" "I already did it," I said. He looked older in that moment. Not from age, from the weight of watching control slip through his fingers. "Did you ever think about how this looks?" he asked. "To the neighbors? To Alice?" "To Alice?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "She knows more than you ever will." He winced. Lauren appeared behind him, bathrobe tight around her waist, eyes puffy. She looked at me like someone surveying storm damage. "I hope this gives you what you're looking for," she said. "It already has," I replied. The truck was full. The doors were closed. I picked up my handbag, the same one I'd carried the day I first went to Sandra's office, and walked to the door. "I left a letter on the kitchen counter," I said, without turning around. "What kind of letter?" Michael asked, cautious. "Not a goodbye, not a thank you, just the truth." Then I opened the door. Outside, the morning was bright. Alice was already there, leaning against her car, holding a thermos and smiling like the sun was something she carried in her pocket. I walked to her. She took my hand. "You okay?" she asked. "I am now." She opened the passenger door. I climbed in without help. She didn't offer. She knew I didn't need it. As we pulled away, I looked once at the house. Not to mourn it. Not to regret. Just to remember how it looked the day I stopped waiting for someone else to let me live. Alice reached across and gently rested her hand on mine. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said. I remembered how. The truck followed behind us like a quiet exclamation mark. And the house, that perfect hollow house, shrank in the rearview mirror until it disappeared altogether. I opened my journal for the last time that week and wrote, "Day 0. I left with everything that mattered, and nothing that could keep me small. They'll walk through that house and wonder where the power went." It walked out the front door wearing blue lipstick and carrying a life they thought they'd buried. Let them sit with the silence I left behind. I closed the book. And I did not look back. The new place was small, yes, but it didn't apologize for it. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, windows that faced a line of trees instead of a fence. The floors creaked in the corners, the heater groaned when it started, and the kitchen smelled faintly of old lemon oil and quiet. I loved it immediately. Alice helped me unpack the first 3 boxes. Books first, of course. Then the quilt. Then the kettle. We worked in silence mostly, only pausing to laugh when I insisted the teacups had to go on the higher shelf. Just for the principle of it. By afternoon, the truck was gone. The boxes stacked neatly in the corners. My name was on the mailbox. My key on my own ring. Freedom didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like walking barefoot through a new room and realizing the floor is yours. Sandra came by that evening. She brought a bottle of wine and her tired smile. "You look well," she said, setting the bottle down. "I am well," I replied. We sat on the porch, no leather furniture, no curated silence, just old chairs and late summer air. She gave me a folder, final copies, signatures, notes, my life, updated, corrected, legally restored. "The trust is active," she said. "Your accounts are clean. They won't be able to touch anything. Not anymore." "Let them try," I said softly. Sandra nodded. "You did this with such grace, Marilyn." I looked out at the street. A boy rode by on a bike too small for him. A dog barked. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing the piano, badly. "It wasn't grace," I said. "It was precision." Sandra laughed, that rare, low laugh of a woman who's had to fight too often and smile too little. "Same thing sometimes." After she left, I made myself tea and sat by the window. The breeze moved the curtain just enough to make it feel like someone breathing with me. I thought of the first night Michael moved into my house, the way he looked around like he already owned it, the way Lauren cataloged every corner, and I thought, they never saw me. But I saw myself now, fully. I didn't need the house. I didn't need their permission. I didn't need to be remembered by them. I just needed to remember me. Before bed, I opened the last page of the journal and wrote, Day 1. There is no silence now, only quiet. No erasure, only space. No fear, only rest. I am the story, and I am still writing. I placed the journal on the bedside table. The room was still, but inside me, finally, everything was awake. It's been 3 weeks. The boxes are gone. The books are shelved. The photos are up, not arranged by decade or theme, but by feeling. Smiles beside stillness. Moments beside memory. The first night, I left the bedroom window open and listened to the sounds of the street. A girl laughing, someone practicing guitar, the rustle of leaves. It felt like the opposite of surveillance. It felt like being left alone on purpose. Every morning now, I make my own breakfast. Toast with jam, real coffee, boiled eggs the way I like them. No one hovers. No one monitors. No one edits my morning with small, polite interferences. I even found my glasses. The old pair. At the bottom of a box marked mugs. Still scratched, still bent at the side. I wear them anyway. They remind me of who they tried to reduce me to. They remind me of who they didn't get to keep. Alice comes by on Sundays. We sit on the porch with warm cake and lukewarm gossip. She updates me on her studies, her friends, her thoughts on the world. She listens when I speak, not out of duty, but out of respect. She calls me fierce. I tell her, I'm just finally free. As for Michael and Lauren, I don't hear from them, not directly. Sandra called to let me know they contested nothing. No letters, no disputes, not even a phone call. I think they're ashamed. Or maybe they're relieved. Now they don't have to pretend anymore. I don't wish them harm. I don't wish them anything at all. Some people walk with you to the end. Some people walk you to the edge and step back. You don't owe them your ruin to justify your exit. I spent too long thinking quiet meant weak, that small meant invisible, that aging meant fading. But I was wrong. Because I learned this. You can leave with no witnesses and still be heard. You can lose the house and still keep yourself. You can be reduced on paper and yet expand in spirit. And sometimes, the loudest form of resistance is living well in a place they can't touch. If you're reading this, if any part of this feels like your life, I want you to know something. It's not too late. You are not stuck. You are not foolish. You are not just tired. You are allowed to begin again, even now, especially now. Take the pen back. Take the morning back. Take your name back. One box at a time. One room at a time. One quiet, unapologetic step at a time. And when you do, when you open that door, don't look back. Look forward. Then tell your story, so no one else has to wait as long as we did. If this story found you, stay. If it shook something loose, follow. And if you saw yourself in even a single line, leave a comment. I'll be reading.